They thought they had me. They thought I was just a quiet old woman, recovering from loss, easy to manipulate, a resource to be tapped. And for a time, they were right. I was generous, perhaps too generous, with the little I had left after building a life and facing unexpected widowhood. My home was paid for, a modest house filled with memories. My savings were enough to see me through, with a little left over for the people I loved, my family. But before we dive into the story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below, and if you believe family should protect, not exploit each other. Hit that like button and subscribe for more. My son Mark and his wife Sarah were always struggling, or so they said. Their kids, my grandchildren, meant the world to me. Especially little Leo, Mark and Sarah's youngest, who was a handful but had a spark in his eyes I adored. Mark and Sarah lived just a few towns over and visits were frequent. I'd help with groceries, school supplies, the occasional unexpected bill. It wasn't a hardship, it was family. I'd always believed that's what family was for, supporting each other. My parents had struggled, and I'd watched them rely on their siblings. It was the way I was raised. My husband's passing 2 years prior had left a void, and focusing on my family, helping them navigate their own challenges, felt like a way to fill some of that emptiness. I found comfort in their presence, in the rhythm of their needs, in feeling useful. My small pension and careful savings were adequate, and my home, my sanctuary, was fully mine. I had planned to leave it equally to Mark and his sister Lisa, ensuring they both had a little security when I was gone. Lisa lived abroad, married to a wonderful man, and while we were close, she was self-sufficient and never asked for anything. Mark and Sarah, however, seemed to exist in a perpetual state of needing just a little more. It started subtly. A request for a small loan that wasn't mentioned again. An expectation that I would pay for family dinners out. Hints about how tight money was, always delivered with a sigh and a pointed look at my comfortable, albeit modest, home. Then came the bigger requests. Help with a car payment here, a chunk for a business opportunity there. I gave willingly, dipping into my savings, rationalizing it as helping them get on their feet. They were my family, after all. One evening, Mark and Sarah were over for dinner. Leo, usually boisterous, was being particularly disruptive, running through the house, yelling. I gently asked him to quiet down. Mark sighed dramatically. Mom, he's just being a kid. Don't be so hard on him later. In the kitchen, I overheard Sarah talking to Mark in hushed, urgent tones. Did you ask her about the mortgage yet? We need that money by Friday. Just tell her it's for the house, she'll give it to us. She doesn't need that much saved anyway, Mark responded. I'm working on it. Just let me handle it. She's easy. Especially now, the implication hung in the air, especially now that I was alone, perhaps more vulnerable, more easily swayed. It was a cold, calculated assessment, and it struck me like a physical blow. They didn't see me. They saw my bank account. My heart sank. It wasn't just about the money. It was the casual, dismissive tone, the assumption of my compliance, the way they spoke about me when they thought I couldn't hear. I finished washing the dishes, my hands trembling slightly. I didn't confront them. Not yet. An unfamiliar coldness settled in my stomach, pushing out the usual warmth I felt in their presence. Something had fundamentally shifted. That night, I lay awake, the overheard conversation replaying. She's easy, it stung more than I would have expected. Was that truly how they saw me? Not a mother, not a grandmother, but just a soft touch, a convenient source of funds? I thought back over the past 2 years, the loans that were never repaid, the mounting expectations, the way they seemed to dismiss my own needs or feelings. It wasn't just my imagination, it was a pattern. A pattern of taking without gratitude, without respect. The next day, still shaken, I did something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out all my financial statements. Bank accounts, investments, pension details. I cross-referenced everything, looking for the amounts I'd given them, trying to reconcile them with promises of repayment. Most of it was gone. simply absorbed into their expenses without a trace of return. I also looked at my property deeds and insurance policies. Everything was in order, clearly in my name. For now. A few days later, another incident solidified the unease. Leo was playing in the living room while Mark and Sarah discussed their finances loudly, seemingly unconcerned I was within earshot. They were complaining about a bill, arguing about who was responsible. Sarah said, "Well, maybe if your mother wasn't so tight with her money." I felt a hot flush rise up my neck. Tight? After everything I'd given? Leo, perhaps sensing the tension, or just acting out, grabbed a half-full glass of juice from the coffee table and, looking right at me with a defiant glare, deliberately poured it all over the antique rug my grandmother had given me. It was a deliberate act, not a childish accident. I gasped, moving forward instinctively. Sarah just shrugged. "See? He's just acting up because of the stress. He needs a new game console to distract him. Maybe you could help us out, Mom." My eyes were fixed on the spreading stain on the priceless rug, then on Leo's challenging gaze, then on Sarah's expectant face. The juice wasn't boiling water, but the act, the deliberate disrespect, the immediate pivot to asking for money, it was just as shocking, just as violating. Mark chuckled weakly. "Yeah, Mom, he's just a kid. Don't make a big deal out of it. He's just a kid? This wasn't just a spill. This was a child, enabled by his parents, showing a blatant disregard for my property, my boundaries, right in front of them, with their tacit approval. And their immediate response was to deflect blame and ask for money for the child as a reward for bad behavior. It wasn't just my finances they felt entitled to, it was everything. My home, my peace, my authority, my very dignity. The rug could be cleaned, but the stain on my perception of them felt permanent. I needed to do more than just look at statements. I needed information and I needed protection. My next step was a quiet one. I contacted a lawyer specializing in elder law and estate planning. I made an appointment under the guise of updating my will. This felt safer, less likely to raise suspicion. I didn't tell Mark or Sarah. The lawyer, a kind but sharp woman named Ms. Davies, listened patiently as I described my situation, my assets, my generosity, the recent incidents, the overheard conversations, the feeling of being seen only as a financial resource. I specifically mentioned the juice incident and their reaction as evidence of their enabling and lack of respect for my boundaries. Ms. Davies confirmed my fears. While no direct legal action had been taken against me yet, their behavior, coupled with their financial struggles and expressions of entitlement, pointed towards a clear risk. They might try to pressure me into selling my home, taking out a reverse mortgage for their benefit, or even, in extreme cases, attempt to challenge my competency to gain control of my finances. The "he's just a kid" excuse for blatant disrespect was a red flag indicating their unwillingness to set boundaries for themselves or their children, likely extending to financial matters. My generosity had inadvertently painted a target on my back. Ms. Davies advised me to start documenting everything. Every request for money, every loan amount, every email, every text message hinting at financial need or expectation, every significant incident like the juice spill and their reaction. I needed a clear, dated record. She also advised me to secure my assets. This meant ensuring all my accounts were linked to strong passwords they couldn't guess, checking that no joint accounts existed. Thankfully, there were none, and making sure my property deeds were securely filed. We discussed powers of attorney. Ms. Davies strongly recommended I appoint someone other than Mark or Sarah, perhaps Lisa, or a trusted friend, or even a professional fiduciary, to handle my affairs if needed. She also suggested we draft a new will, clearly stating my intentions and including clauses that would make it difficult to contest, particularly by anyone who had attempted to exploit me. Leaving Ms. Davies' office that day, I felt a strange mix of fear and determination. The fear was real. The thought that my own family could be plotting against me was deeply unsettling. But the determination was stronger. I would not let them take advantage of me. I would not let them disrespect my home, my life, or my hard-earned independence. I began my quiet operation. I bought a small, discreet voice recorder. I started keeping a detailed journal, noting dates, times, who said what money was requested, what excuses were made. I went through old emails and texts, forwarding relevant ones to a new, secure email address I created solely for this purpose. I took photos of the juice stain before I managed to clean most of it, just in case. I even started subtly redirecting conversations towards their financial situation, listening carefully for revealing details. The manipulation escalated, just as Ms. Davies predicted. Mark called, sounding stressed. "Mom, we have this huge, unexpected bill. The car needed major repairs. We just don't know how we'll cover it. Could you possibly help?" Just until things stabilize. This time, instead of agreeing immediately, I hesitated. "Oh, dear, that sounds difficult. I'll have to look at my budget. Things are a bit tighter for me right now, too." It was a lie, but I needed to test the waters. Mark's tone immediately changed. He became pushy, guilt-tripping. "But Mom, it's family. You've always helped us. We're in a real bind here. What about all that money you have saved? And the house, it's worth a lot, isn't it? You don't need all that cash just sitting there." He was no longer asking. He was implying entitlement, hinting at the extent of their expectations. It was chilling. Sarah joined in the pressure campaign. She started calling me more frequently, but the conversations were always steered towards money. "Leo really needs those new shoes for school, Mom, but we just can't swing it right now," or "We're thinking about remodeling the kitchen. It would really increase the value of your house. Maybe you could help with the initial costs." My house, framed as my investment in their future plans. The audacity was breathtaking. The most disturbing moment came during a visit. I had been particularly careful about my words and actions, giving them no indication I suspected anything. We were having coffee, and Sarah casually mentioned, "We were talking to a financial advisor the other day, just about future planning, and he mentioned that sometimes, as people get older, managing finances can become a bit overwhelming. There are options, ways to have family help manage things, make sure everything is taken care of." It was delivered with a sweet smile, but her eyes were cold and calculating. Mark chimed in, "Yeah, Mom, we just want to make sure you're okay. We worry about you. And it would make things so much simpler down the line, wouldn't it? Having one of us help you with the bills, maybe put some of the assets into a joint account for easier access." This was it. They were laying the groundwork to question my competency, to suggest I needed their help to manage my money. They weren't waiting for me to die. They wanted control now. This was the crucial second mandatory antagonist micro-cameo, a direct confrontation disguised as concern, revealing their true intention to gain control of my assets. The calm way they spoke about it, the casual suggestion of joint accounts and help, was more terrifying than any yelling. They were strategic, insidious. My resolve hardened completely. I would not be managed. I would not be easily accessed. I calmly replied, "That's a very kind thought, dear, but I manage perfectly well. I have my system and I'm quite happy with it. I've always been independent with my finances, and I plan to remain so." I kept my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil inside. Sarah's smile tightened. Mark looked visibly annoyed. The conversation shifted abruptly after that, the warmth draining entirely from the room. After they left, I immediately called Ms. Davies. I recounted the conversation about managing my finances and joint accounts. "This confirms they are exploring ways to gain access and control," she said. "We need to act proactively and decisively." We finalized the plans we had discussed. I formally signed the new will, appointing Lisa as my executor and primary beneficiary, with a small, specific trust fund set up for my grandchildren's education that Mark and Sarah could not access directly. I signed a durable power of attorney, appointing Lisa as my agent, specifically stating that this power did not come into effect unless I was medically certified as incapacitated by 2 independent doctors, and explicitly excluding Mark and Sarah from ever holding this power. These documents were notarized and filed securely. Ms. Davies also advised me to take immediate steps to protect my liquid assets. I transferred a significant portion of my savings into a different bank, one they didn't know I used. I set up strict alerts on all my accounts for any withdrawal or transfer activity above a very small amount. I also changed the locks on my doors and installed a simple security camera system that recorded motion, especially at the entrances. It felt strange, like preparing for a siege in my own home, but necessary. The ultimate smoking gun discovery happened unexpectedly. While going through some old papers in the attic, I found a folder Mark had asked me to hold onto years ago. Inside, among innocuous documents, was a printed email chain between Mark, Sarah, and a distant cousin who was a realtor. The emails discussed the approximate value of my home, different ways it could be potentially accessed or sold quickly, once Mom is settled, of course, and even hypothetical scenarios involving power of attorney or conservatorship, if she becomes difficult. They discussed timelines and strategies, treating my home and my future as a commodity to be acquired and liquidated for their benefit. They had been planning this for a long time, well before my husband died, perhaps accelerated by my widowhood. It wasn't just vague hope or suggestion. It was a cold, calculated plan. This wasn't just proof of their intentions. It was proof of their active scheming. I scanned the email chain and sent it immediately to Ms. Davies. "This is strong evidence," she confirmed. "This moves beyond speculation about their intentions and shows concrete planning to potentially defraud you or exert undue influence for financial gain. We can use this." This discovery gave me the legal weapon I needed to proceed not just with protection, but with definitive action. We began preparing the necessary legal documents. The pressure from Mark and Sarah intensified. They called incessantly, asking about my decision regarding helping with the car/house/Leo's needs. They even tried sending Leo over alone, perhaps hoping he could charm me or that I'd be less guarded with him. I limited visits, always insisting Mark or Sarah be present, and kept interactions brief and in public spaces sometimes. They complained to other family members, painting me as suddenly uncaring and selfish. My phone buzzed with passive-aggressive texts from Sarah, "Sad you can't help your own family when they need you," or "We're struggling, just thought you'd care." They were creating a false narrative, trying to isolate me. But I was no longer listening to their guilt trips. I was working methodically with Ms. Davies. We compiled all the evidence, the journal entries, the emails, the financial records showing the pattern of unrepaid loans, the notes about the competency suggestion. We focused on their financial manipulation and the clear intent to gain control of my assets. The boiling water incident, or its reframed equivalent, and the juice spill were included as examples of the extreme disrespect and enabling behavior that led me to believe they were capable of the planned exploitation revealed in the emails. The day came when we were ready. Ms. Davies had prepared the documents. They weren't dramatic lawsuits demanding millions, which wouldn't fit the realistic tone. They were precise, legal actions designed to protect me and draw clear boundaries, with consequences for their manipulative behavior. We initiated proceedings for a civil restraining order based on harassment and financial exploitation attempts, citing the documented evidence of their pressure, demands, and planning as proof of their harmful intent towards my well-being and assets. Simultaneously, a formal letter from Ms. Davies was drafted, detailing the discovery of their plans, the email chain, and stating that any further attempts to pressure me financially or question my competency would be met with legal action, including potential reports to Adult Protective Services and law enforcement regarding financial elder abuse. The letter also formally severed any expectation of financial assistance or future inheritance beyond the terms of the newly updated will, which was referenced but not shared. This was the legal equivalent of freezing them out. The documents were served on Mark and Sarah on a Tuesday morning. I wasn't there, of course. Ms. Davies arranged for a process server. I was at home, the doors locked, watching the feed from my new security cameras, feeling a strange mix of anxiety and quiet resolve. The reaction was immediate and exactly as predicted. First, stunned silence. Then, panic. My phone started ringing incessantly. Mark, Sarah, blocked numbers. Voicemails piled up, initially pleading, then rapidly escalating into furious, shocked demands. "What is this?" Mark yelled in one message. "You can't do this. We're your family. What about everything we've done for you?" Sarah's message was more hysterical. "How could you? After we've been there for you. Who do you think you are, taking away our future?" Their overconfidence had been their undoing. They truly believed I would never fight back, that I was too kind, too old, too dependent on the idea of family unity to rock the boat. They thought I was easy. They thought they had already secured their future slice of my assets. The concept of the winning lotto ticket they coveted, my secure home, my savings, the inheritance they felt entitled to, had suddenly been snatched away, not by me physically taking something, but by me legally securing it and placing it irrevocably out of their reach. That was the something they'd regret. They hadn't lost a specific physical ticket. They had lost access to the entire prize pool, my life's accumulated value. They came to the house, pounding on the door, yelling my name. The security camera footage showed their disbelief, their rage. I didn't answer. I watched, calm and steady. They were frantic, desperate, completely losing the facade of concerned children. The truth, backed by legal action and concrete evidence like their planning emails, was now undeniable, not just to them, but also to the few extended family members they had tried to sway, some of whom were now hearing rumors or seeing parts of the truth. They tried one last round of manipulation, tearful voicemails from Sarah about how this was hurting Leo, how I was tearing the family apart, how they would have to declare bankruptcy, trying to guilt-trip me into rescinding the orders. I didn't respond. Ms. Davies handled all communication, clear and firm. The legal process was in motion. The restraining order meant they couldn't come near me or my home. The letter made it clear their financial pipeline was permanently shut off. In the immediate aftermath, a profound quiet settled over my home. The phone calls and messages eventually stopped as they realized I wouldn't yield and that their behavior was now documented and reportable. There was no dramatic courtroom confrontation, no public spectacle beyond the legal filings themselves, which were precise and focused on financial protection and harassment. The legal victory was quiet but absolute. The restraining order was granted based on the documented pattern of harassment and attempted financial coercion. My assets were secure. My will and power of attorney were robust and uncontestable by them. Mark and Sarah faced the consequences of their entitlement, not just the loss of expected inheritance and ongoing financial aid, but the legal implications of their documented scheming and harassment. The something they'd regret wasn't just the money, it was losing access to me, losing control, and having their true character exposed by their own words and actions. My new life began, marked by clear boundaries and a quiet, fierce self-protection. There were no more unexpected visits, no more guilt-tripping calls, no more demands. The relationship with Mark and Sarah, and by extension, Leo, was irrevocably broken, replaced by a necessary, permanent distance. It was a somber reality, the loss of the family I had cherished replaced by the peace of security and self-respect. I sat in my living room, the afternoon sun warming my face, looking not at a stain on the rug, but at the quiet order I had restored. I had been seen as easy, as just a resource. But I had proven that quiet strength, methodical preparation, and standing up for yourself were far more powerful than manipulation and entitlement. The lotto ticket of my secure future remained firmly in my own hands. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this story, give this video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself.